Now I'd like to pose the third point in terms of what are the avenues forward for our society?
I'd like to start because my kids are back and I'll have to go. Sorry about that, Prof. But look, I think the avenues forward, again, I'll come back to training, training the young, because the older people, it takes a little bit longer to steer the ship in a different direction. But with you guys, for me, with you guys and the younger medical students and healthcare professionals, if you're growing up with that culture of treating patients like human beings, understanding their context, making sure that language isn't a barrier, talking about the prejudices and biases that we have, sensitizing everybody to the LGBTQIA plus community and so on. I think we're headed for the right in the right direction. It will take a while, right? Everything takes a while to change, but as I said, and I'll say it again, that I'm just glad that you're aware of it, and you're going to make sure that your peers, your seniors, and your juniors start being aware of these issues, because we can't run away from them. It is a real issue, and certainly can't sweep it under the carpet. And I think, Prof, I'll never forget the way she's framed this with regards to George Floyd. It'll be stuck in my heart for the rest of my life. But she really captured, that is it, that it's captured so well. So thank you so much. I really do have to disappear because my family's back. I'd asked them to leave for an hour, and now they're back, so I have to go. But I'll watch the recording, and I'll make sure I share it on all my platforms as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ned. Thank you so much, Prof, and thanks for me.
It sounds okay now.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, all right. So basically, what I was saying is that building on the notion that what we are seeing often is just symptoms. I think for me, what is mostly important, that we must not be tired of pushing for, is the whole thing of disrupting the system as is. What I've noticed that it's very easy for us to address the tangible issues, but often the problems lie within those intangible issues. And I think for me, then we need to really do a lot of work there in terms of if we are serious about serving humanity, these intangible issues are actually important as well. And part of this then is a commitment to contribute to rehumanizing healthcare services, and this includes shifting. So if you look at disability, for instance, we need to really shift from that colonial logic of seeing disabled people as a problem that needs to be fixed. And I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that regard. So it then forces us to take issues of disability and disability inclusion very much serious through addressing some of these systemic barriers that hinder access and other needs from being met for persons with disabilities. And so if we work really on that, we can live in a society where difference is not necessarily a problem, and that people are not denied access or chances of life and living on the basis of being different. So the health system has been a culprit in that, and I think a lot of work needs to be done there with regards, if we are really serious about, for instance, the theme of the Sustainable Development Goals, which is about leaving no one behind. We really need to shift from that mindset where persons with disabilities remain an afterthought when designing health systems. So that needs to change. And for me, another way forward, I think, would really be staying with the theme of community-based rehabilitation services. I think that is very much important, and persons with disabilities themselves could be included in leading the intentions of community-based rehabilitation. So yeah, I think that's it from my side. I would head over to Elelwani.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, for me, it's been absolutely wonderful, and it was so nice to meet Dr. Sindi Van Zyl, and yeah, I'd never heard from her before, did not know about her work, and looks like you've brought us together for the first time for much work that I think we are willing to do and support you because as Dr. Sindi indicated, yeah, this is leadership, and we're going to see more of this and more of you and your work, and you will be a different health practitioner from what we see around us, and I think many of us woke up quite late in life, but you woke up early enough to do much more, but we are here to support the work. I think what has come up very strongly for me in this conversation is that part of the avenue for addressing the issues we've raised is dismantling the divide between patient and practitioner, especially if you are Black. Because this divide is constructed. It is not real. You know, one part of the indictment that we read in the Mayosi report, for us as healthcare practitioners, but I think most profoundly as an institution, you know, the health sciences faculty, is that Prof. Mayosi suffers excruciating pain, right, and distress as he is trying to engage the issues that students are raising that emerge out of systemic racism, right? And as he struggles with mental health, he's surrounded by experts. He has people who he is seeing, whom you should expect that, you know, he makes it, right? So that shift from being an expert and a practitioner to being a patient is one that we must always stay very alert to. The same way as George Floyd moved from being a walking person who has just been to a shop, ends up as a victim of police brutality, becomes a patient when he's put on a stretcher, but he's put on a stretcher in a particular way that shows that he's not your ordinary patient. He's a patient already dealt with through people's hands, but hands that are part of a system that does not see a human in a Black body. And then he ends up in a morgue in just a matter of hours. So this divide where we see patients on the other side and ourselves as experts on this side is a construction that we need to dismantle. I think for me, it's becoming very clear, because even as we were talking, you know, I kept hearing when I also go for services, especially from the stories that Dr. Sindi was sharing with us. And then I was thinking of myself at the care of experts as a woman giving birth, right? And what Lieketseng was talking about, knowledge, which you no longer are allowed to draw from. When I thought of what my mom had said about the value of physical activity when you are pregnant and what it means when you're going through labor and you are forced to lay still and what damage that can cause. And the first childbirth that I have, being disbelieved for the pain that I'm going through, sent back home by someone who never had a child themselves, but has been given the label of expert and giving birth, which should not be something that is treated as a condition, a health condition, ends up being in the hands of healthcare experts, and I could die. And of course, it happens in a way that I'm left with stitches. And then the second time I give birth, it's a different story. I remember what my mother taught me, and I use what she taught me. I move and I walk all the way to the labor ward, and this time with a midwife who's tapping from indigenous knowledge systems around oils that you use to massage the body at the back. And I mean, I'm not shy to say this, that when the child came, it was like an orgasm. It was a pleasurable experience. And I'm thinking, this juxtaposition, you know, of two experiences. And I'm like, does it really have to be this way? That we are party to a system that really cares about profit over life. You know, so the way we perpetuate the system as healthcare practitioners who buy into this divide is something that I think we need to really think about carefully. And I like what Lieketseng is also saying about community. But I think we need to stretch things a bit further beyond services that we provide to communities. But think of communities in the way that Lieketseng is saying, communities that are debilitated, where they are robbed of resources for self-determination and self-reliance. Why is it that communities are becoming more and more dependent on a system that does not care about them? Communities are no longer able to care for those amongst them who are vulnerable. And it's getting worse. It's not getting better, it's getting worse. You know, during COVID-19, we hear that government actually cannot carry us all. That 350 rand that people were clamoring for is only for 3 months and then it's gone. It's not gonna get better for our people. And I'm saying, no. When we're talking about systemic issues and dismantling them, it has to start with understanding exactly how genocide is not an event, but an ongoing phenomenon as an expression of coloniality. And that our people are witnessing this every day. Indigenous populations all over the world are seeing this genocide ensue every day, and that it is selective, and that when you look at us healthcare practitioners, we sometimes carry the tools for genocide at our hands, right? Treatment and diagnosis. We diagnose, we treat, but we diagnose and treat in the way that only perpetuates the system. We're not giving back the tools for diagnosis and treatment back to communities. communities that are stripped completely. And there's no way of reviving those resources unless we deal with colonization. And then when you think about the resources, the essence of society, it's very clear what the foundations of society are: land, spirituality, language, diet, and family. Without land, how is it that we will have communities that can self-sustain? So I think the work ahead is clear. There's not this divide between patient and practitioner is false. We dismantle it, and along with the conscientization of our students, we need to remind them that if they continue to see themselves, and especially, and I mean, what you said for me is so clear, this upward mobility is BS. It's BS. You get separated from your own, but you actually will never be separate. The system does not see that separation. And Prof. Mayosi's passing is a very stark reminder of that. It's a very stark reminder of that. And I hope every South African, especially Black and African on the continent, in the diaspora, everywhere, should read that report from beginning to end. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, you made me think of something, Elelwani. I was also thinking that, you know, you were speaking about the divide between being a patient and being a practitioner, and I was thinking that there's even a divide between myself as a person. You know, I'm another person when I enter the place of work. I'm another person when I enter my home, you know. So there's also that divide of being two people at once, and that is how the system is killing us. It is really killing us, and this is what the healthcare workers were also sharing in the research that we were doing with my colleague Shoma in Elelwani in the Eastern Cape, that often they have to leave themselves at the gate when they enter the hospitals and forget about the knowledges of the home. And then they have to then participate in this whole notion of being the ones having to shout at patients just at the mention of having used the knowledges of the home. And I think part of the disruption then will also end that divide. It's really not healthy. It's really not healthy, and I think it is behind the mental health issues that we see amongst healthcare workers, particularly Black healthcare workers as well. And I think the same thing happens with the patients themselves as well, because they have to deny themselves who they are when they are in those institutions, and then be another person when they are at home. And I find that very absurd. So part of the work really will have quite a bigger impact if we really work towards disrupting that system. Thank you.
It's a big one, especially how language, you know, scrambles your thinking. Even if you are entering an institution as a patient where no one speaks your language, even people who look like you don't speak your language, how do they reckon that they can understand your ailment, especially if you have a mental health condition? How's that even possible? These things are huge, but I think we are beginning to unpack the nature of the beast. And Yeah, Fundi, you've started us on this, and yeah, I don't think there's much more we can say beyond, yeah, just indicating that we are here to walk the journey with you. Yeah, this is the start of a very critical conversation.
And thank you to all three of you. I know Dr. Sindi is not with us, but just for being so willing to engage with us and to share and to have these hard conversations. And I'm reminded of this one quote that I heard earlier this week, just about how I've been feeling, because it is very debilitating, especially when you're compounded with all these existing identities, that the quote goes, "We must try again, fail again, and fail better," because it's a historical issue that will take so much time and effort to undo. And as you said earlier, we're only beginning to unpack, but we are creating a platform to address these issues, but it definitely doesn't stop here. And we definitely look forward to engaging with you further.